Let us know if you can hear us or see us, and then we will begin. And I promise you, next time I'm doing a live stream, I'm getting an intro. But let me know in the chat. All right. Sounds good. I'm excited for today's live stream, but let's get into it. This week at Davos, Donald Trump stood on the world stage and told European leaders that without America, they'd all be speaking German. He also announced a so called Board of Peace, even though one of its members couldn't attend because he would have been arrested for war crimes. And at the same time, Trump claimed the United States needs to take Greenland to protect it from Russia. The same Russia he just invited to sit on that peace board. And then he demanded a Nobel Peace Prize. I wish I was making this up. But is Putin finally getting what he has wanted for decades, a broken NATO, not through tanks or missiles, but through Donald Trump, the president of the United States? And if NATO fractures the US and Europe drift apart, what kind of world are we actually heading into? I'm Slavie, and this is SlavaCast on Channel Yarchenko, and today I'm joined by someone who understands war not just from a studio, but from the front lines and from the information battlefield. Operator Starsky. Starsky, thank you so much for being here at the very beginning of this SlavaCast journey.
Hello, Slavie. Hello, our dear viewers, dear friends and family there in the chat. I cannot see your commentaries because I wasn't prepared, but I'm privileged to be here on your stream.
Thank you so much. And guys, get comfy, stick around because we are diving into the circus of Davos, Trump's Board of Peace, peace deals, Greenland, and of course, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I do want to start with a shout out to Ukrainians that are in the cold because of Russian terrorist attack. Um, my heart is with you. Our heart is with you. And you guys are my heroes. Every single person in Kiev, in Ukraine, that's going through this. So, Starsky, for people meeting you for the first time, give us the only facts of who you are and what you do.
I'm a Ukrainian veteran. I served 10 years. I served 1 year in the Police Special Force Battalion in 2015 and 9 years in the National Guard of Ukraine, 4th Operative Brigade of the National Guard called Rubish, the Hostomel Brigade, and currently I'm a host at UATV, basically talking about the war, talking about the people from abroad who come to Ukraine or help Ukraine, support Ukrainian people, and many, many other things. I run my tiny YouTube channel
Yeah,
and
very tiny.
enjoy speaking to our amazing community from around the world, people who support Ukraine.
Amazing. You do incredible stuff. I really do enjoy your shows and you on UATV. And you're based in Germany, right?
Yes, at this point I'm in Germany.
Okay, well, which is important because this week Germany expelled a Russian diplomat for spying. A Ukrainian German trader woman, a Ukrainian German trader woman was arrested for feeding Russia information about drone testing, defensive sites, and Ukraine's military support. German authorities say she was helping Russian intelligence attend political events under false identities and map networks inside Europe. This isn't history. This is happening now, also here in US. So, Starsky, from where you are in Germany, does it feel like a continent is preparing for defense or a continent already under attack?
So I can tell you this: so the German military are preparing. They're actually studying our experience, and Ukrainian veteran organizations in Germany are working together with the German defense sector. So they are very, very much interested in studying and learning our experience, because basically we are talking about the war of today, and in military academies and military institutions, what we do basically is we're learning the wars of the past. All right, we never prepare for the war of today, and that is basically the experience that Ukrainians are ready to share, want to share with our allies. On the first place, our European allies, and basically everybody who supports Ukraine, who stands against tyranny and protects democracy. So at this point, specifically in Germany, we can feel that the preparation continues. Military from the European part of NATO are very, very interested in acquiring our experience, in changing their approach, their doctrine to the new war, because we are preparing for the Russian invasion. A lot of intelligence agencies are talking about that. We're talking about the end of the decade when this invasion is most probably possible. And so it's good to see that our colleagues from European countries are getting ready to this, are preparing to this, and hopefully our friends from the United States will do the same, because even though United States Army is one of the strongest, if not the strongest army in the world, but we are talking about absolutely new type of warfare, new type of environment, where all those assets that made United States Army strong, all right, like jets, big expensive ships, tanks, and stuff like that, are usually being destroyed by plenty of small, cheap drones and cannot be replaced easily. So hopefully they will listen to our experience as well, because after all, we are allies and friends and all that stuff.
It's interesting. I'm totally going off book. Um, that yes, America has a very strong military, but I don't think they've ever fought battles like in Ukraine, those kind of style battles. They do some kind like missions, but nothing like, right?
Well, look, from our experience, right? From the experience of the guys from the United States who arrived to Ukraine, and let's say like 2022, 2023, when the war already looked different than today, all right, because of current drone situation. Uh, the guys that would arrive back then, 22, 23, and 24, they would go like, so where is our air support? All right, like, where is our artillery? And we're like, we don't have it. They're like, so how do you fight? And we say, well, this is how we fight. So they were kind of surprised, all right, a bit. Some of those guys didn't like it very much the way we do it, because unfortunately we are not so rich, right? We're not as rich as the United States, so we cannot afford hundreds of jets and stuff like that. But others who adapted and later adapted already to the new environments, to the drone warfare, to the counter drone warfare, those can actually say a lot. So you are actually right about American army, that most probably since the times of Vietnam didn't have much experience like this. Okay, maybe the Gulf War, maybe, but since that time, guys, 30 years passed, even a bit more, and the situation is completely different. The doctrine is completely different. But still, despite that fact, United States Army has very good training. They are very much professional. Again, they were participating in multiple different conflicts. They have great experience. So it's not only about the direct experience, but also about the training.
Got it. I was thinking of that quote, "You're only as good as your leader." And then I'm like, well, chief in command is Trump, so to have that much power, it's a scary thought. But this isn't just tanks and missiles anymore. It's espionage, influence, infiltration, and political sabotage. And alongside the spy networks, we're watching extremist narratives spread through culture wars, social media, and political movements. Far right parties, anti Ukraine messaging, and anti NATO rhetoric, all growing at the same time. How much of what you're seeing, Starsky, the far right, the anti-Ukraine messaging, the anti-NATO rhetoric feels is it more like feels organic, or how much of it feels engineered?
I would say that it pretty much feels engineered most of the time, and especially considering the fact that whatever far right party in Europe, like you spit in the group of far right guys somewhere on the street, and you will most probably hit a Russian spy because considering the amount of all the scandals, all the guys exposed on taking bribes and stuff like that, or cases of espionage for Russia, or cases of cooperation with Russia, with Russian so called soft power agencies. Of course, the situation is overwhelming, and we all understand who are the people behind the far right and far left movements around the globe. That's very important to remember because the Russian soft power agencies, and we're talking okay, not only about the soft power agencies, but also FSB, SVR, Russian intelligence agencies. They all work with marginal movements, both far left and far right movements. In Cyprus, it's AKL in far left or right. Far right could be, I don't know, AfD in Germany, Jobbik in Hungary, and many other examples. On one of my streams, I actually tried to visualize for the viewers the way the Russian soft power and hard power agencies work with those far left and far right movements, with the extremists, with radicals around Europe and in the United States, of course. And when you look at it, you understand that they are very much intertwined. And both through Russian political parties, both through Russian those soft power agencies like Россотрудничество, Русский Мир Foundation, and many others.
So interesting. But from a communications perspective, what's the best way to fight extremist messaging when it hides inside this culture war, like all these narratives inside the culture war?
My answer would be very simple: support Ukrainian defenders. I will explain why. Because the paid propagandists, all those talking heads from the social media, right, from the YouTube, the only reason they speak about, the only reason they promote the pro-Russian narratives is because of money, because basically they're paid, all right? Let's be realistic. And the more strikes, the more deep strikes Ukraine is conducting against Russian oil refineries, against Russian oil infrastructure, all right, oil industries, the less money Russia has to actually pay to the propagandists, and they have to stretch those finances use their reserves. So basically, when Russia doesn't have money anymore, all right, to support its propaganda, and Russia is currently spending between $2 and $20 billion a year, it's very, very hard to calculate for obvious reasons, because they have specific funds for propaganda, and then they also have all sorts of funds that are directed at approximately between 3 and 5,000 talking heads around the world. All right, majority of them are in the United States. So you can approximately calculate the amount of money they spend on that, plus politicians, plus political parties that they have to bribe and stuff. So at some point, when they run out of their financial resources, those guys will not be supporting Russia much, because they won't do that for free, of course. Like, it's a very, very simple explanation. Besides, training, um, critical thinking, fact checking and stuff like that, because we never do that. But what we can actually do is literally support Ukrainian defenders, so they strike Russia painfully, massively, and making run out of its financial resources, which fuel the Russian propaganda and disinformation around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. This reminds me of most recent news that I read about Anna Polina Lunatic, and she was hanging out with with a with a far right Romanian guy, um, and she's like prancing around the cameras, and she's like in this most insane fur coat. She didn't get that in the United States. Obviously, the Russians gave it to her, but it was clearly a bribe. But yeah, she was prancing around in it, and not one care in the world um, what it may look
Yeah,
like.
what I can tell about her is that she's definitely a target of Russian so-called soft influence, right, soft power, because there were numerous cases. For example, last year, Russians wanted to share some sort of critical information with her. Was it regarding Epstein, or was it regarding JFK assassination, something like that? But Russians said, okay, we have some very, very important files that we would like to share, and we will share those files, of course, with Anna Paulina Luna personally, all right, not with the Minister of External Affairs, all right, of the United States, not with ambassador, but with some specific given uh, American person, which most probably doesn't have, such position to actually do that on the international level. So that's one of the interesting cases. But generally speaking, Anna Paulina Luna is actually known for spreading a lot of disinformation, not only about Ukraine, not only about the current situation, but also about herself. Remember when she was like lying to her Jewish voters that she was a Jew? And then the Ashkenazi community actually learned that they actually confirmed that she wasn't a Jew at all. She made it up. Yes, so there are already questions to how much trustworthy she is, and from what I can read in the comments, she is not trustworthy at all.
No, not at all. Um, so, how would you say, how do we bring back morals and critical thinking once that shift, takes hold?
I'm not sure if I'm the right person to do that, but first of all, we should not bring back. I think we should rather adapt to the situation, because we live in the society that is highly saturated with social media, with AI generated content, and most probably we should find or learn a way of how to live in this environment and how to tell truth from lies, how to tell which content is legit or not, because basically we evolved from the times when we would rather watch TV, watch news on the television, and read newspapers to the content consumption, which is today. Basically, we receive content from social media, not necessarily from the official websites of different media outlets. And we gotta evolve. We gotta find a way how to survive in this cruel but interesting world.
Absolutely. I'm gonna go off book again. How long would it take to reteach Russians?
Let's be real, it took many centuries to actually train Russians, grow them, raise them as zombies. And in my personal opinion, that would also take quite a while. We're not talking about years or decades, but then who knows? All right. I bet I'd give them like 30 years. All right. That's like very, very minimal time before several generations change, and the new generations might actually have chance. But on the other hand, look, we have a lot of Ukrainian kids that were kidnapped by the Russian terrorists, and they are being indoctrinated in the Russian military camps. So basically, Russia is growing, like Putlerjugend on its territory. How much time will it take to unbrainwash those guys, all right? Because several years from now, they will be signing contracts with the terrorist army, and they will be sent to Ukraine, maybe to some European countries, and they will be very effective because they are raised like that. They don't have their position. They are brainwashed. They are indoctrinated, and they are trained how to clear the trenches, how to operate weapons. So they're trained in tactics, in combat medicine, in I don't know, whatever they teach them, how to operate improvised explosive devices and things like that. And that is their basic education, let's call it like that. So how much time will it take to re-indoctrinate or unindoctrinate those kids? It's a big question, because I'm not sure that we have ever faced something like that.
Yeah, I'd say it's one of the most heinous crimes that Russia is committing, and it is like to steal kids. It is a crime um, says that it's genocide when that happens, and that's what Putin is wanted for, is for this for stealing kids, basically at The Hague. But let's segue into Davos, because it feels so surreal. So while Germany is arresting Russian spies and expelling diplomats, while Europe is quietly tightening its security, Donald Trump walks into the world stage and starts blowing holes in NATO. So Trump told European leaders that without America, they'd be speaking German.
In
Yeah,
Davos, yeah.
in Davos. That's their main language, is German. He claimed NATO has never been there for the US, when the only time Article 5 was invoked was when US went to fight for 9/11 to Afghanistan. Uh, he claimed NATO has never been there for the US. It's ridiculous. He invited Putin onto a so-called peace board. You know, the guy that we were just talking that's stealing children, committing a a genocide on Ukrainians. Yeah. And in the same breath, he said the US needs to take Greenland to protect it from Russia, that same Putin that's on his peace board. Is this chaos, or is this their strategy? This is Putin's doing.
I literally, I don't know. I was watching several moments of that speech, and I think I start to understand like Americans a bit more, all right, after watching Trump, because I hear a lot of thoughts, a lot of commentaries, all right, from American people who actually say, don't take Trump like literally, take him seriously, don't take him literally, because he's literally like a living word generator. He just generates whatever, you know, whatever he can. Um, yeah, of course, it was kind of cringy to listen to him saying that in the German speaking place, all right, that people would speak German, if not United States. That was probably like the cringe of the evening. But speaking of the NATO, that was never there for the United States. Not only NATO was there for the United States, not only uh, United States, UK allies were losing their lives, losing their health, uh, helping their friends to fight against the terrorism. But also non-NATO countries were there for the United States, because several thousand Ukrainian soldiers were also there in the Afghanistan and Iraq, and their mission was to remove IEDs, make sure that American soldiers, British soldiers, Australian soldiers are safe. All right. So they were there literally to save lives. And quite a few Ukrainian soldiers also lost their lives while being there. That is something, for example, a lot of like radical MAGA people don't usually talk, because like it doesn't matter much to them. But the fact is, when United States called their allies, when they started talking about the Article 5 and started discussing, calling for help, a non-NATO country, all right, Ukraine, decided to participate because we also wanted to help, because the whole world was watching that horrible terrorist attack on the United States. I watched it myself on the television, and those were some of the craziest days of my life. So that is something people often forget. But on the other hand, let's be honest, Ukrainians already got used, to the fact that people forget things. People forget like Budapest memorandums. People forget many things. Most probably, it's just our nature.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's betrayal after betrayal for getting Ukraine. And then I think sooner rather than later, it'll be Europe that will be seeking security assurances from Ukraine. But we'll get we'll get to that in a second. I wanted to talk about that this week, French and Ukrainian intelligence ran a sting operation designed to test whether sensitive information shared with Washington would be passed to Moscow. False classified material was deliberately given to US officials, and that information was then sent straight to Kremlin. The goal was to confirm whether Russia was receiving intelligence through American channels, and they were. After the leak was confirmed, European governments began restricting what intelligence they share with the United States. In other words, America is now being treated as a potential security risk by its own allies. So, if US allies feel they need to test whether Washington leaks to Putin, what does that say about how broken this alliance is?
Um, let's take a look at Trump's first steps, all right? As soon as he became a president, as soon as he was inaugurated. So, first of all, he decreased or limited the amount of active cyber operations. We're talking the cyber countermeasures in the CIA and other agencies. So that was one of the first steps. All right, he just said, guys, you don't need to actively, you know, be actively involved in those countermeasures against the foreign hackers that are state funded in countries like Russia, for example. The GRU-GSH, they have their very own hacker group. Why was it done? Why did he say, to withdraw, to basically shrink the cyber shield over the United States? Why? What was that decision based on? I have literally no idea. I think in order to understand that, we gotta read Trump's and Hexet's WhatsApp, all right, where they share their state secrets. Maybe then we will understand. I have no idea. But um, I should be worried about that, of course, all right, because United States, they are our allies. Their security is our security. Their security breach is our security breach. But on the other hand, I believe that American people should be even more concerned than me, because I'm not even an American. I'm just a Ukrainian person. So I think that they and their specialists, their intelligence should be concerned much more about that, because that's actually a very, very big issue. In Ukraine, we had a lot of issues related to the Russian spies in SBU, in our external intelligence, in the main intelligence directorates. Since 2014, when the Russian hybrid invasion started, we cleaned hundreds of Russian moles, or Russian spies operating in our headquarters, in our security agencies, intelligence agencies, and this process continues. Sometimes it's necessary to actually extend the operations, all right, of your counter espionage agencies, help them, provide them with everything necessary so they do their job well.
Yeah. Side question. Uh, have you met Budanov by any chance in your lifetime?
No, I haven't.
He's like a Ukrainian James Bond for me. And yesterday he was in the office with Zelensky, with Trump, and now Ukrainians and many people are saying that Budanov is Zelensky's Trump card. So I think so as well. Budanov, he was CIA trained, so he has really close ties to um, people up in the government, in the intelligence industry. I think in the FBI as well. So um,
I tell you this, yes, Ukrainian operatives were trained by our Western colleagues, because our Western colleagues, specifically the intelligence agencies like CIA, all right, they spent decades learning how to counter, all right, how to counter KGB spies, all right, spies coming from the Soviet Union, forgetting for a while that uh, before 1992, I think, the main intelligence agency that we have currently in Ukraine, called SBU, was also called KGB, because we were the part of the same system. So basically, like you don't really need to train us how to operate against guys that actually taught us, all right, like we know how this stuff works from the inside. But yeah, in terms of course, in terms of cooperation, in terms of multinational cooperation, that is of course very, very important.
so interesting. Would you say Ukrainians are the best at dealing with Russians, with Russian KGB today? They know the best.
They are among the few who actually do that, all right, because like you can ask probably right, like if you don't have any acquainted guys working with intelligence, right? I don't know, like Google, ask ChatGPT, you will find something very, very interesting. You will actually learn that Russia is among the few countries that are involved in hybrid warfare against Europe, against the United States, against Canada, Australia, generally against the civilized world, right? Because they often cooperate together with the North Koreans in terms of cyber warfare and stuff like that. North Koreans, Chinese, Russians, and Iranians. But at the same time, not a lot of countries actually conduct any operations on the Russian territory, right? For different reasons. They might find it very, very hard. Okay, Russia can basically penetrate the Western society through social media because Western society is very, very open. The information reaches our people easily, all right. In Russia, it's a different story because in Russia, they don't have freedom of speech and they don't have independent media. That is why conducting informational operations on the Russian territory is literally impossible. Then we are talking about the cyber warfare, all right? In terms of cyber warfare, of course, there are multiple hacker groups that are stealing um, very sensitive information from the United States, from European countries. One of the recent attacks was actually the attack that disabled several airports in Germany as well, by the way. So that's very, very serious.
So that
Uh,
was Russia, obviously.
of course,
Yeah.
but who does the same on the Russian territory, all right, except Ukraine? Basically, I don't know. We can recall several operations, Operation Spiderweb, Operation F the Kerch Bridge 3 times, and stuff like that. Then multiple operations involving our hackers that strike Russian state establishments that wipe their data, steal their data, provide us with some absolutely remarkable email correspondence, right, belonging to the Russian war criminals, all that stuff. Also, all seen, yes, it's done by Ukrainians primarily, and it's also done by different volunteers, right? They are not paid. They are literally volunteers helping Ukraine, basically like NAFO, all right? But besides Ukraine, neither United States nor mm, United Kingdom nor France, they don't conduct any active measures on the Russian territory other than classic intelligence collecting data. Currently, this is only a war of Ukraine against Russia in terms of secret services, and this is the war of Russia against everybody else, against the civilized world, without any symmetrical response, which is freaking crazy because having all the resources that European countries have, even without the support of the United States in terms of intelligence, actually, they could F up Russia very, very bad because British intelligence is absolutely amazing and brilliant. French intelligence, again, a lot of representatives of other countries actually don't really like French intelligence because they are some of the best, all right? And
'Cause they're so
they could
sly. They're so, like, sly French.
they are let's say they are clever and cunning, all right.
Yeah.
They really are, and they're very good at collecting intelligence, and European countries, had they given this command to f Russia up from the inside using their secret services, Russia would burn tomorrow, right? But Ukraine is actually among the few countries that is conducting those active measures on the Russian territory involving the secret services, if not the only country. All right.
Well, um, Ukraine is doing some incredible things. Also, doesn't Ukraine kind of have like Russians that they've have on the inside of Russia, helping them with attacks and like all the sabotages?
It works both ways. Look, there are Russian FSB spies that recruit, for example, Ukrainian teenagers as suicide bombers, right? They tell them which object to attack, how to combine or assemble a bomb, and then when they arrive, they're basically detonated remotely, all right? They're de-atomized together with their targets. So basically, Russia operates like ISIS in this regard. So they offer some, I don't know, $200, $1,000 for a mission. Of course, those victims never receive those money, as we can understand. It's very dangerous. And we can see the same situation, by the way, on the European territory. Because the number of incidents involving drones flying over the airport and stuff like that, they are increasing. Again, there are several spy networks exposed, all right, Germany, Switzerland, involving Germans and Russians and Ukrainians. They were ordered to send like bombs to Ukraine and stuff like that. So a lot of them are involved via messengers, via different other channels by Russians. And of course, the same tactic works against Russians because it works both ways, all right? So not only there are ideologically, let's say, conscious people on the Russian territory who also help Ukrainians, but also quite a few people who love their motherland so much so they can easily sell it for like $200. Works all the time, especially, all those amazing people who like to stand on the balconies and like record Ukrainian drones hitting their targets on the Russian territory. We're talking the deep strikes, and then literally sell it to Ukrainian channels because actually Ukrainian channels pay a lot for that.
Yeah, I always wondered about those people. Um, but just to go back to French intelligence really fast, I believe no, French intelligence has taken over some aspects that America used to take care of for Ukraine. So now Ukraine is relying more on French intelligence because can't really rely on Americans. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There are such things. Unfortunately, French intelligence doesn't have as many assets, satellites. I'm talking about equipment of that sort as United States, but they are very good, very strong, and when they work combined together with British intelligence, for example, they can do actually a lot.
By the way, this reminds me the last episode of SlavaCast was called Russia Occupy Washington, Not Kiev. So make sure you guys check it out. Maybe mods can send the link because I talk about how Russia has been hacking United States for years now, Amazon, even corporations, and they're getting so much data. And Trump is just because United States is not doing anything about it right now. And Trump is he doesn't care. He once answered, they're Russians. That's what they do. They hack. Oh my god. I don't know. Something like that really reminds me that he might be an asset, a Russian asset to say something so.
He will never say anything bad about Russians, all right? Let's be honest. He admires Russians. He admires Putin. Admires the way Russians actually operate, and I think he might be even a bit inspired by them. All right, because you see, Russians built this very, very big and beautiful myth about them that involves like Russian culture, unbeatable Russian sportsmen, and all that stuff. But what do we see on the front lines? On the front lines, we can see them riding donkeys and horses. We can see literally like Russian cavalry. I don't know.
Yep.
So the camels, like if I'm not sure, I don't want to predict anything. All right, because I'm like not a really good prophet,
No,
but
the camel,
uh,
though, the camel escaped a zoo. It wasn't for the army, but the horses, the donkeys, God knows what else. They'll
absolutely, like if next time we will see, I don't know, like elephants, all right, like Russians riding elephants. I have no idea. Probably I will just call some mental institution for myself, all right, because that is something that even I cannot bear, all right. But Russia built this big, beautiful myth. And for example, when you go to Moscow in like 1987 for the first time, when you see that like beautiful, exotic place with those churches, Orthodoxy, and stuff like that, of course, that looks very, very unusual to you. It gives you some sort of inspiration. I've been to Moscow like once in 2012. Place sucks so much. It's cold, it's moist, expensive like shit. And I I don't know. I had like tea that would cost me like $20. And after that, I had enough. So I have no idea. But apparently, Trump likes it very, very much.
indeed.
Generally, can I curse on your channel, by the way?
Go ahead, bring it.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, like, we know that Trump went to the to Russia in like 1987. A capitalist person went to a communist country to do some capitalist business, which is again something very suspicious. But in Ukraine, for example, we have a saying that SSSR, communism, all that Russian mm, environment, um, all that is actually like big, scary old ass. There's absolutely nothing beautiful about it, but perverts love it.
Yeah, I see. That's a great explanation of what Russia is. I've personally never even wanted to go to Moscow. I've been invited many times, and even before everything, I never I was like repulsed by it. However, when I was 7, I've been to St. Petersburg to go to audition for Vaganova Ballet Academy. I was 7 years old, and thank God um, that didn't happen because my life would have been very, very different. And but I mean, St. Petersburg was beautiful, but it doesn't really look like Moscow. I don't see the I never saw it. I never see the attraction, and I mean, it's just Moscow and St. Petersburg that are okay. Um, but the rest of Russia is a dumpster fire. It's a dumpster.
Yeah, you go
Everything
to
in
like,
Russia, what's that meme? Everything in Russia is shit except piss.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Like you go to some Omsk, and basically that tells everything you need to know. How what the life looks like 50 kilometers away from Moscow, from St. Petersburg. It's absolutely different. There's like the life stops there together with asphalt and stuff like that.
It's it's so weird because Trump, I thought he likes winners, and Russia is definitely a loser. So I don't know, which always we'll talk about this in a bit, but which leads me to believe that maybe perhaps Putin does have compromise on Trump. And it's probably he knows who Baba is. Now that we know.
Um, you know, usually it's not why, usually it's what. Okay, usually it's not why Trump is calling Ukrainian President Zelensky a dictator, not why Trump is blaming Ukraine for being invaded, not why Trump never condemns Russian war crimes and stuff like that. It's not about why, it's about what. All right, what does he do specifically? And we can see very, very clearly that he doesn't enjoy helping Ukraine. He doesn't enjoy talking to President Zelensky. He doesn't enjoy, the very fact that Ukraine actually f's up Russian oil refineries on a daily basis and turning them into basically, firework shows every single night. He doesn't enjoy all that. He roots for Russia. Like, let's not lie to ourselves. He roots for Russia. He invites Putin. He basically likes, good partnership, good relations between like dictators. All right, his little dictatorship club called the Peace Board. That's
Oh,
basically
we'll talk
everything
about
you.
that. We will talk
Yeah,
about that. But I wanted to say something, but I forgot. In the meantime, I want to take a little break and do some shout outs. Papa Dutch, you're amazing rock star, coming in with a super chat saying, dimes become dollars and dollars can become drones. Then another super chat. Think about the USA in World War II when people even saved giant balls of foil for the aluminum. Another super chat from Papa Dutch saying, I have to wait 5 minutes to say that the USA is repeating history, which is a bad thing. Oh, Papa Dutch, did you unsubscribe from my channel? That's why you have to wait 5 minutes? Guess you're making up for that now with all the super chats. Another one is saying, that is because oh yeah, I guess you did just subscribe. Well, welcome. It is it is interesting that super chats override the subscription thing. Well, that makes sense that they override it. Um, but oh, another one from Ohms saying, I want a shout out. Ohms, here is your shout out. Thank you so much for the super chat. Oh wait, I missed one. From Sir Shroom saying, hi Slavie and Dakuyu. Thanks to Starsky for making me aware of your channel. Oh, thank you so much, Starsky. And yeah, thank you so much for bringing your viewers.
it's my pleasure. Generally, we all share our audience to some extent. Uh, our family there on the other side of the screen usually, is subscribed to all the right people, right? Like all the proper people on a YouTube.
Yeah, it's important to I personally, I'm subscribed to all the Ukrainian pro-Ukraine creators on YouTube, and even when I'm not really paying attention to TV, I make sure to leave like YouTube playing all the time because that helps with getting the content out there. Doesn't matter who does it, it's pro-Ukrainian content. It's great for Ukraine. So that's what I do. That's kind of like my thing to help with this information war. So you guys should definitely do it on channel Yarchenko. Endorse it.
That's interesting, by the way. Huh, I never thought about it actually. Thanks for the advice.
And then because I end up watching like the whole stream, or not actually watching and paying attention, but it will play the whole stream, and that's amazing for videos when the whole video has been watched. So it's great for the algorithm. Here's another Tip for you viewers, make sure you watch the whole video. Do not leave early because that really screws up everything. But yeah, since we're talking about channels, guys, if this matters to you, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share this. It helps more people to actually see what's happening. All right, and let's get back into it. So, Davos. Usually, Davos is a bunch of people in suits talking about markets, AI, the future of the economy. A lot of it is polite, some of it is boring, but this year, Davos felt different. This year was filled with moments where you didn't know whether to laugh or panic. We had Donald Trump on the world stage calling Greenland Iceland multiple times. We had him threatening NATO allied over Greenland. We had Gavin Newsom telling Europeans to get knee pads, to buy his knee pads if they were going to appease Trump. We had Macron going dark behind his sunglasses. Which I did appreciate that. I did like how he said for sure after everything. That was cool. But yeah, and then we had two speeches that stunned the room. Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, and Zelensky, both calling out the system, both getting standing ovations as well. Starsky, before we break all this down, what happened? Did you have a standout moment from Davos this year? Something that really stuck with you?
Oh, there was a lot of cringe. That's like what I remember. I know that Zelensky and Carney's speech were very good. I didn't watch them. I'm like, okay, I trust they were fine. Yeah, but I didn't watch them myself. Um, Generally, look, Davos is good for making statements, okay? And on such events, of course, you expect some very, very good statements, very, very good speeches. And when they go like one after another, when we understand that we have some sort of unity, some sort of mutual vision of the situation, of course, it's very, very good and it's inspiring. But when we have what we have on this one, that I would not call it inspiring. That is actually very, very cringy. Yeah, unfortunately, that is why I like to discuss it on your channel, because on my channel I usually discuss magnificent Russian cringe. Yeah, this kind of cringe is I don't even know what to say about it. It it won't like demoralize me, but it's very, very close to that. All right.
Yeah. Um, I it looked like circus, and it's just so surreal. But yeah, the reasons Europeans were furious this year wasn't just um, Trump's tone. It was that Trump openly said the United States would take sovereignty over Greenland. Greenland belongs to Denmark, a NATO ally. Trump said just because Denmark's boat landed in Greenland hundreds of years ago doesn't mean they own it. US also had boats there, he said, land there. Um, when that happened, America was not a thing, by the way. So, and yeah, quite, it does mean that, well, I guess in the European imperial colonist way, if your boat did land there, then yeah, guess everyone was happy with that arrangement. Um, but there's that single statement really shook the entire alliance, it seems like. Europe didn't hear the joke, obviously, that was not funny. Europe heard a threat. And when Denmark gently said no, Trump didn't just complain, he escalated rhetorically, politically, and economically. So Trump now seems to have backed off Greenland, at least for now. Do you think that was just a bluff, or was he testing how far he can push NATO?
He wasn't testing, he actually wanted Greenland, all right? He confessed many times that having Greenland attached to the United States as its 51st state would make him feel good, all right? And things like it's his um, very, very personal, narcissistic desire to own Greenland, all right? That's reason number one. Reason number two was explained very well by Anders Bach Nielsen and by Vlad Exler, because there are people that Trump either despises or admires, okay? Putin, Kim Jong Un, like all the dictators, bloody war criminals, and tyrants. Uh, Trump admires them, okay? The reason he didn't admire Khamenei, for example, from Iran, apparently was because Khamenei didn't kill much people. Yeah, but over the past couple of weeks, Khamenei actually killed like 12, 16,000 protesters on the streets. So that is why like Trump's respect to Khamenei is growing every single day. He even decided to
Hmm.
deportate several dozens of Iranians that were looking for political asylum in the United States for being like prosecuted and repressed in Iran. They will be sent back to Iran where they will most probably go to jail, be tortured, and die, thanks to President Trump. So he despises Europeans because the more you kiss his rear, the more he despises you, all right? If you don't show any strength, any aggression, any power, then Trump will be despising you and basically all of his like followers that are, you know, like puppies, basically, using his example as a role model for themselves. They're basically the same, okay? They don't respect you if you don't show teeth, if you don't hit back. And this
By
was
the way,
actually
Starcy, I remember it was on your live stream. I said, I was like, stop appeasing Trump. And I remember you're like, I don't know, we might need something from America. I was like, we always say stop appeasing dictators. Trump is right there. So, and he tends to listen to those that stand firm and tell him no. He backs off. So, oh man.
um, I agree with you. Sometimes it's, especially in case of Trump, it's necessary, again, according to Anders Bach Nielsen, which I completely agree with. It's necessary to escalate in order to de escalate because Denmark said, we will not let you just annex Greenland. All right. People of Greenland said that we don't want to be Americans. We have something that you, Mr. Trump, probably never heard about, right? But we have dignity, we have patriotism. Someone even said that there is a possibility that every um, citizen of Greenland would receive like $1 million. I think dignity costs a bit more. That's what I've heard. All right. And later we could hear the same statements made by different other countries. All right. And again, let's be realistic. European Union is bigger than United States in terms of population. Okay. In terms of resources, I cannot tell, but in terms of population, in terms of manpower, in terms of intellectual power, um, European Union is bigger and kind of stronger. All right. And actually, European leaders said that no, you will not Why you will not invade Greenland? Because there will be consequences. President Macron, again, we don't know everything. Maybe somewhere behind the closed door, he said, President Trump, I respect you so much, but I will fucking nuke your country, okay? If you invade, if you attack our NATO ally, no, nothing personal, okay?
I will baguette your country.
Yeah, kind of. So he could just say that behind the closed door, and that might actually make Trump think a bit. Like, does he really want that? And I will tell you one thing for sure. We all use the nuclear warfare as, this big boogeyman to scare the hell out of our opponents, to deter and stuff like that. But um, nuclear weapons will not be used because the tyrants who often threaten using those nuclear weapons, they don't want to die themselves, especially Russians. They don't want to kill um citizens in like Washington D.C. or New York with nuclear weapons because they don't want to kill their own wives and kids who live and study there on the first place. Let's be real. And secondly, because they don't want to die themselves. They don't start the wars because they want to die. They start the wars because they're 100% sure that they can reach success. Okay, they don't bet on a deal that will definitely fail or will not succeed 100%. They aim at winning. That is something that makes them, well, not great, but at least successful in their eyes. And such things will not bring any success, will not bring any benefit to Trump, aside of like pain in the ass, very, very big pain in the ass. And also, just like, invasion of Ukraine didn't bring much uh, thriving, or welfare to the terrorist federation, aside of like a bunch of stolen Ukrainian toilets. I don't think that they gained much.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I agree with you on everything there. Um, but so is there any real security concern like Russian fleets, Arctic routes, or was Greenland about really like power, leverage, and resources? And these freedom cities for oligarchs, I mean, we've heard it all, but I don't know. I've been looking and kind of studied all these like passages, and there is like a what's it, Arctic ways that Russia can use to its advantage. So I wouldn't say I believe Trump's security concern, but overall, looking at different maps, yeah, Russians. But go ahead. I'm answering my own question.
Well, look, Russians have bases that are located much closer to the United States than Greenland, all right? They, like in Cuba, their nuclear submarines with nuclear weapons on board are located roughly like 90 miles from the American border, from the beautiful state of Florida. Why there's no concern about that stuff? Again, we are not talking about literally Russians occupying. There is no information about the expedition forces of China or Russian Federation being prepared to invade Greenland, to establish their dominance. What
Plus,
will
with what fleet? Ukraine sunk a lot of it.
Well, yeah, first of all, Black Sea Fleet is incapacitated, all right? Like one third of it doesn't exist anymore. And also, what sort of resources we're talking about, what sort of logistics we're talking about, what sort of signs signalizing that Russians or Chinese even prepared to invade Greenland. Why the fuck Greenland? Sorry for my French, but
No, go ahead.
how come Greenland all of a sudden became like target number one? Okay, let's talk Taiwan. Let's talk South Korea. Let's talk Ukraine. Let's talk places that are actually important, that attract attention, because the future will be solved there. The future will be decided there. All those territories, whether there is like Russian or Chinese uh, governance or
China is
power.
currently winning the minerals resources race over United States. Trump obviously doesn't like that, and I think, and I'm not standing up for Trump, guys, in no way, but the, China does have more minerals and resources, but they've been doing this the- like I don't know if I can word this, but you know that Greenland also kind of what happened with Ukraine. It's it's like a kilometer of ice, the whole thing. And yes, ice is melting, but it's not going to melt that fast. And it'll be very difficult to get these minerals out. So kind of similar story with Ukrainian minerals that Trump really, really wanted. He got it, and
Mm,
this
From what I can tell, you will not even find many maps of Greenland like the middle part of it, all right? Because it makes no sense. There's just ice, all right? Like
yeah,
the sense of making those maps doesn't exist. You can just paint it white. There's just
there,
ice.
there's no roads. Yeah, it's like a but Trump also wants them for like Peter Thiel, who wants these freedom cities and these data centers because data centers need ice and they need water to cool them and resources. And yes, Trump promised Peter Thiel freedom cities, which Peter Thiel still wants to build them in United States. But I think he promised Trump promised his oligarchs to deliver it, and not.
Um, so one thing that I actually appreciate, all right, after Davos is that Europeans actually showed that they're not afraid to fight, they're not afraid to protect what's theirs, and that Europeans will act together. Uh, all of Europeans, all of the European countries, nobody said, like, maybe let's just give that Greenland to Trump, let him just shut up. No. Everybody said, okay, this is our sovereignty. We should stand together. We should fight. We should support each other. All right. And this is something inspiring to me personally. And this is something that I wish the European leaders to show more. Okay. Not like Mark Rutte, who calls Trump his daddy or his sugar daddy. I have no idea, but the position
Probably
that
sugar daddy.
yeah, but it's very important. It's not important. It's necessary for European leaders to actually show this position, especially today. Especially today when we are facing not like in Greenland, all right, but we are facing actual threats coming from Russia, coming from far left, far right movements, coming from extremist movements. In Germany, one of the far left movements was actually arrested again for espionage. They were collecting data. They were sneaking to different military objects on the German territory to provide it to the Russian intelligence services. And we are facing actual threats in such theaters as Taiwan, um, South Korea again. Those are real threats. Those are real threats that we should react to, together as civilized society, and not play freaking stupid games. I don't know, searching boogeyman or like Bigfoot, with like Russian flag hiding somewhere in Greenland. Like it doesn't happen. Okay, friends, um, there is no plan of Russia's invasion of Greenland. There is Russian plan of invasion of Alaska. I shit you not. There is such plan, but there is no Russian strategy for invading Greenland because it makes absolutely no fucking sense whatsoever.
Yeah, which leads me to my next question. Do you think Putin pushed Trump toward this to fracture NATO from the inside?
I am not sure if Putin did this, but I am sure 100% that Putin would applaud Trump. All right. And Putin will applaud whatever Trump's initiative that is aimed at destroying NATO alliance, at sowing this discord in the NATO community and in the European community. He will be applauding, he will be celebrating that. And something tells me, again, I'm not uh, building this conclusion, all right, on like facts. I'm only building this conclusion on trends that we can observe since January 2025. We will see such cases happening over and over again, at least until midterms in the United States.
Yeah, well, there's a chance that they may be canceled because MAGA will do just about anything to make sure that these elections don't happen. Because if they do happen and they happen fairly, everyone's fucked basically for all their criminal activity that they're doing, literally going against the Constitution on everything. But while here in America, I am truly rooting for Europe. I believe Europe can do great things. It's great on its own. It really doesn't need United States. If anything, United States needs European products. When Trump threatened to tariff the like French wine or French champagne, I was like, oh my gosh, not Dom Perignon. How are we gonna survive? I'm just kidding, but that would be terrible. And French wines, everything. It's not like we have, well, I mean, California wine's fine, but
Not only why, look, Slavie, United States not only receive the finished products, not only like luxury products and stuff. In most, I think in most cases, I can claim that it's like most cases, all right? American importers receive different components, parts, materials, fabric, different technical parts, medicine, all right, also components for producing medicine, and a lot of things that don't come to the United States as like finished products, but as parts that you use to assemble those products on the American territory. And not only the wine market will suffer, but generally speaking, all the market will suffer. It's not like Europeans will have to pay more, to be able to trade on the American territory. American importers will have to pay more to obtain, to import those parts, components, cars, car parts, medicine, and yada yada. And in the end, someone in the United States will still have to pay more. And in most cases, that would be either businesses or clients. So we will see either decreasing profit for businesses, either increasing prices for clients. It always works like that. So, of course, European countries will also suffer from that. but America will also suffer from that. And like, what's the point? What's the sense of all that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna I'd say it's gonna suck for us here in United States, but something like in me is like if Europe is strong, us truly democratic and freedom loving people will be okay too, even though the economy is going to shit. But which leads me actually into talking about this topic, because when Trump threatened Denmark over Greenland, this didn't stay just symbolic, it turned into economic warfare between the US and Europe. Trump announced tariffs and trade penalties on European goods. The EU prepared retaliatory measures of their own. And this is a trade war between allies, may I remind you, allies. And here's what Americans need to understand. When the US and Europe slap tariffs on each other, like what uh, Starsky just explained, we pay for it, Americans. So there's going to be higher prices, higher inflation, higher cost for cars, tech, energy, and food. And Europe is one of America's biggest trading partners. When that relationship breaks, households really feel it, and not politicians. Starsky, from your perspective, do Europeans see this as just Trump posturing or the beginning of something breaking, like for real? This is a breakup.
Ah, from my personal perspective, Europeans will try to do whatever they can not to let it happen, but they can see that Trump literally plays with those executive orders like like a naked boy. Why? How to explain this joke? Uh, I was born in such a poor family that I'm happy that I was born a boy. Otherwise, I would have nothing to play with. Like he plays with those laws like a maniac without even realizing the consequences of that. And it was like that all the time. It was like that when he was 45th president of the United States. It was basically the same. He thought that that's literally, his supreme power, that he can usually actually do whatever the hell he likes. Increase tariffs, decrease tariffs, rename like continents, rename planets. I don't know. Um, all that stuff has consequence, but guys, Trump is a person who actually doesn't keep his word at all. All right, let's start with this. I talked to Professor Gerdes, and that's something that he actually told me, which I realized, shit, he's right. He said, when Europeans listen, to Trump's statements, they go like shocked, they go like completely crazy because how could he say that? Oh my God. But to Americans already like got used to it, and it's like yeah, he said that stuff. Like, forget about it. He says a lot of crap. Okay, let's just not bother. Okay, Europeans are different because to Europeans your word should be worth something. All right, when you say, okay, I promise, you should keep your promise. When you say, dude, I will be like fighting against this because this is wrong, you should stick to your word, and you should prove that, okay, you keep your word, because that is literally the fundamentals of business. Okay, if you're not a trustworthy partner, what sort of like businesses will have any relations with? Like, it's nonsense if you cannot stick to your words, if you cannot follow your promises. um, well,
I'm right
you
there with you on that about integrity and keeping up, even like small things. I always make sure that whatever I say, I can do, keep up with, whatever I promise, because if it's just gonna I'm gonna not feel good about lying and not it's lying basically. And I don't know. I think that's just how we were raised, but many people just say whatever they want. I don't know if it's an American thing or just people that were raised like that. But yeah, they say whatever they want and they don't care. But
I think maybe it's Paul Manafort's influence. All right. However, even comparing Trump to Yanukovych, Yanukovych was still smarter. He was a very dumb bandit. All right. Yanukovych became oligarch and then he became like dictator in Ukraine for a very simple reason. He was a freaking mafioso gangster who would like bury people in the concrete, like kill people, as order assassinations, blow up people to pieces. He was a gangster, but and he wasn't the smartest gangster. He was just very atrocious gangster. But even this stupid, atrocious gangster, he at least had something, some kind of like rudimental strategic thinking, all right, that would bring him to where he was, and from where he fell down, all right, disgracefully, thank God. But even in the let's say in the community, all right, of gangster mafios and stuff like that, your word still means something, especially in like in prison society, where Yanukovych also had chance to enjoy it like 3 times at least during his career. He did his time like 3 times in prison. uh, in prison, your word means something. In the gangster community, your word means something. In business uh, life, all right, in business environment, your word means something. Otherwise, you're not reliable. Okay, nobody cares about you. But for
that's
some
why
reason,
that's why Art of the Deal worked out so great. I mean, bankrupt a casino. None of his businesses, many businesses that he started, have ever succeeded, really, except the business of becoming president of United States. That's working. It's the first thing that's actually working for him because he can get away with corruption. Americans
yeah.
never seen this much corruption, and many they don't care. They think it's normal, but it's bad.
Well, again, Slavie, I think that he's inspired by Putin's example, all right, like what makes Putin great. Okay, he has a lot of oligarchs, a lot of like dedicated people, a lot of corruption, a lot of like invasions, okay, a lot of stuff. He lies to his population all the time, okay. And maybe that is something that inspires Trump so much.
There was last year there was a very good movie that came out about Trump, but it's a movie um, about young Trump and who mentored him. And it was this like sleazy lawyer mafia guy. And now that I'm remembering, that guy, well, first of all, he was orange. Trump was orange. Literally everything that he was, Trump is now. It's so crazy. But I think the rules were never back down, never admit to lying. Um, I wish I remember all of them, but yeah, never back down, no matter what.
Yeah, that's not the best decision, especially especially if you don't follow it, because when you said, I want to see Epstein files released and I want to see it, done like tomorrow, then please freaking do that, all right? We are like, it's 24th of January already. How much time should people wait? to see all the details on those horrific crimes committed by world's biggest sex offender, I have no idea. But when you ask him, he usually goes, "Oh, you still talk about like Epstein? What? Look at like how great we are instead." What, like, what the hell is that? Me personally, I never thought that I will be so much engaged into this investigation as a civilian, as a former cop. I don't know. I never thought that I will be so much engaged and so much following this. But the moment I saw the Epstein survivors sharing their experience, talking, explaining their stories, I realized there are 1,200 people like them. And this is absolutely insane. And who is prosecuted for that? Who is arrested for that? Besides, like Maxwell and Epstein himself, who are the people, the co-conspirators, who were ever arrested for that? Basically, nobody, because people who committed those crimes against those girls, that a lot of them were underage, they're just there. They evaded their responsibility, and this is something like it's horrible, guys. It's actually horrible. They evaded responsibility simply because they are rich, they are powerful, and human lives don't matter to them at all.
But
In
no one is
Ukraine,
untouchable, though, and that's the mistake many of these guys that are drunk on power get. They think they're untouchable. One moment, then they always like that's karma. Think they always fall. No one really gets away with it. So I mean, now it sucks that so many victims, but and there will be more, and not to mention what's happening with ICE right now. Um, yeah, it's scary times. Um, I did. Did you finish, Starsky? Sorry, I cut you off.
yeah. I just wanted to say that in Ukraine, when we saw the same level of like despise towards our rights, our freedoms, um, we basically solved this problem very, very fast. Like, look at Yanukovych, drinking vodka in Rostov, and you will understand, right? Because us Ukrainian people, we hate this. We hate when somebody with power considers themselves like invincible, immortal, I don't know, untouchable. Doesn't work with Ukrainians. We don't like that shit, and we will never feel at peace with that shit. All right. So that's probably one of the reasons why I am watching this, this Epstein situation very, very closely, and rooting for Epstein survivors so much. And I wish them all the best, and I'm looking forward to seeing their investigation that they're preparing to publish either in January or maybe next month.
I hope so, and hopefully it's not going to be redacted. Apparently, 5 million documents, but
So the story is the Epstein survivors. They gathered in a group, and they are conducting their very, very own investigation. All right, so they will be finding connections and trying to find like the co-conspirators, who they were. Right, so they're preparing this very, very big investigation to deliver it to the public, because they understand that Department of Justice, like everybody else, that like they just don't care. All right, they just keep claiming that there were no co-conspirators, and those 1,200 absolutely legendary people, they gathered together, and they're working on this. All right, so they're conducting their very own investigation, and this is something absolutely, absolutely inspiring.
I agree. I did want to bring up this fact, and I fact checked it, but very on topic with what we are talking about. The last time Denmark sold land to the US was in 1917. It included Little St. James Island, more commonly known as Epstein Island. How
Oh
crazy is
my
that?
God. That's insane.
Yep. Denmark sold the Danish West Indies to the United States for 25 million, a deal that included the islands that are now the US Virgin Islands. Among them was Little St. James, the island later made the infamous Epstein Island. As part of the agreement, the US also pledged it wouldn't oppose Denmark's control of Greenland, a statement known as the Lansing Declaration. More than a century later, one of those Caribbean islands would become infamous for one of America's darkest modern scandals, while Greenland is once again at the center of geopolitical tension. History sure has a strange way of echoing, wouldn't you say?
I agree on that, but on the other hand, I can understand Trump, all right? Like agreements, schmagreements, memorandums, schmemorandums, like, come on. I can just say that, Haitians eat dogs and cats and everything will be fine. Like people will believe.
Yeah, eating the dogs. Um, let's get back to talking about Zelensky, because Zelensky came to Davos guns blazing. He went after everyone, and he wasn't wrong to do that. But yeah, he opened by saying that a year ago he stood here and told Europe must learn how to defend itself. And a year later, he had to say the same thing again because nothing changed. He reminded everyone how the world watched the protests in Iran get crushed and did nothing, and how when dictators learn they can kill enough people and survive, they keep going. He pointed out that Maduro in court in New York is in New York, but Putin, who started the largest invasion in Europe since World War II, is still free, still fighting, still getting access to frozen money in Europe. He warns that NATO only works because people believe the US will show up. And what happens if it doesn't? And then he went nuclear, not literally, obviously, but he questioned whether sending a few soldiers to Greenland is defense or just a signal of weakness to Putin and China. He even said Ukraine could help defend Greenland if Ukraine was in NATO, of course. But Starsky, do you think have you seen Zelensky's speech from Davos?
No. I read about it, but I still had no chance to watch it because today was a crazy day.
I'm thinking, do you think, I mean, you hear the comments on it, I'm sure. Do you think this broke through to Europe, this speech? Or will it be just kind of another moment everyone applauds and then forgets, especially now that Europe is being pressured from both sides?
The problem with European countries, like it reminds of a snake eating its tail. I'll try to explain. So there's a bunch of leaders, all right, and there are growing, for example, far right movements in those countries, and everybody, especially in countries like Germany, everybody watching the situation, what is going on, they all understand that like our governments are incompetent, all right? They are incompetent. Those guys, it doesn't matter if they were accused of like being pro-Russian forces in case they want to like, I don't know, be allies with like North Korea, Russia, Iran, and stuff like that. Regardless of that, they still offer some kind of solution. All right, some kind of solution how to change situation. Like I've heard it 1 million times from people that actually try to justify far right parties that openly say like fuck Ukraine, that say Russia go, like but they have some solutions that they offer, all right, how to change their like economic situation, how to change actually all that list of problems that actually persist in those countries that are not made up, like in the United States, all right, like I don't know, brown immigrants are taking all of your benefits, all right, they take all of the jobless pensions, and at the same time they take all of your jobs from white people,
Yeah, and they get
like
free
not.
healthcare, and when Americans don't, apparently.
Yeah, yeah. They receive billions of dollars of pensions, of aid, for not working, and at the same time they take all the jobs from the white people.
Yeah.
But like real problems, all right, not Haitians eating cats, but like real problems with roads, problems with military, with many other things. And turns out that people don't want to support any of the parties that they trusted, they elected, and got literally betrayed by them. And that is why a lot of people actually want to, like protest vote for literally like extremists, literally like fascists, all right, literally Russian puppets. And that's a big problem because the only thing that is holding those countries in one piece at this point is the fact that those countries have like welfare, all right, that they keep some kind of financial balance for the people. And as soon as they start like investing billions in their defense, in reforming military, reforming doctrine, building like expanding their security and stuff, that will of course hit the welfare of the population, and the population will say like, guys, like, didn't you have enough? Okay, I'm voting for like those guys from the far rights, like fuck you guys. And that will be literally the end of European Union and NATO as we know it, all right. So that is actually a very very dangerous situation that current politicians who keep applauding in Davos every single time to Zelensky, like, yeah, yeah, dude, keep talking, they should actually pay attention to this because they have like a very, 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 very big freaking problem sitting on their porch, all right, and knocking at their door, and they just keep pretending that nothing is happening. That's very dangerous. And so far, I cannot see many solutions or many gestures coming from them uh, trying to solve it. Doesn't happen.
Yeah, that does really scare me. I mean, Europe, they are doing something with like, um, with social media regulation. I believe X will not be in Europe anymore. Europe is gonna have its own platform called W. I'm not kidding, but I mean, yeah, they got to do more because that part really scares me. These right wing.
Yeah, 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 I agree on that. But at the same time, we can see that at least people in Europe start waking up. Of course, the problem is that it takes much more, all right, than like a year, 2 years, 3 years. Unfortunately, due to the bureaucracy in specific European countries, all right, unfortunately, due to that, it takes a bit more years for those people to wake up, um, And I just don't want to predict anything, all right? Because I'm a very, very bad prophet, all right? So prophet bringing bad news.
Okay, then we won't go there for now. Um, I do want to point out um, Carney. He he also had a fantastic speech once again, but it also kind of quietly mirrored Zelensky. He talked about mid-sized democracies needing to band together: Canada, Europe, Ukraine, countries that don't want to live under either American chaos or Russian authoritarianism. And just like Zelensky, he got a standing ovation. The third person, by the way, to ever get a standing ovation. First was Nelson Mandela, then Zelensky, then Mark Carney. Um, I did see kind of glimmers of possible new alliances being made, um, because EU and all of those alliances, they do need reform because they're not effective anymore because of all the bureaucracy. But I do see like glimmers, even Zelensky saying, tweeting something here and there of a new alliances kind of forming. Do you think forming new alliances would be effective?
I think it might be effective, but what might be even more effective, in my personal opinion, is reforming and preserving the older alliances. I will try to explain. Okay, it's very, very easy to be, that Canadian or that Ukrainian or like that British man, abstract person, all right, who says, like, Americans are saying shit about me, like, fuck them, let them just, I don't know, um, self-isolate, exit NATO, and let us just forget about that. It's very, very easy to be that person, all right?
Yeah.
But the problem is, to us, it's very important to keep the strategic partnership with the United States, right? Because regardless of who their government is, they are our friends, they are people like us. We still share the same values, all right? And imagine United States exits NATO bravely and faces immediately North Korea, Iran, Russia, China, who else? Cuba combined, all right, against United States, and no, there's nobody to help them, like it was in 2001. All right, there's just nobody to help them at all. So it's not our interest to see demise of United States and say, we told you, all right, I fucking told you, it's gonna, like, it's so childish to think this way. We need to make sure that we have strong collective security, all right? We don't need to like see them burn, and then they will realize what they did and come crying and knock on our door, and we would say, no, like, fuck you. No, friends, let's be just a bit more grown up, all right? Because that is literally the level of thinking of, like people wearing red hats. That is freaking ridiculous. We need United States to be strong. We need all our allies to be strong, and we need our collective security to be unbreakable. That is the only condition, and the only reason, the only foundation, all right, of our survival. I would say that that is why building new alliances, that's of course very, very cool, but we already have pretty good alliance that worked well, all right, and it only has several issues. Issue number one, like 99% of countries have like common vision. And then we have, for example, Orban, who says like, no guys, it's not gonna work, I'm not gonna support you. And the dude literally vetoes everything. Okay, so um, we gotta make sure that we don't have such cases. The dude can just
I'd
go.
say that would help instead of having um a was it popular votes when like have because now they're doing like a unilateral vote in the EU. It means only one vote can block everything. So instead have people, countries vote, and whoever gets more yeses or nos, that's a yes or no. Because that's really stupid that one person, one nation can just screw everything up like that with one vote.
Yeah,
Where's the
and
democracy? That's not democracy.
the same picture is in the United Nations Security Council. Like it's literally the same. All right, everybody condemns Russia for its atrociousness, war crimes. Russia just says, you know, I don't care. You can condemn me as much as possible. I'll just veto you all. So we already have a lot of organizations that should be reformed. That's literally it. It's not necessarily we have to create new and stuff like that. Of course, we can breed those international organizations, like 10 organizations every single day. All right, but we already have those that actually work, that actually have some kind of experience, some kind of basis in their structures, and it will take much less effort to reform them than actually create something new. All right, like why should we invent a wheel when we already have one?
I really respect that answer and how you explained it, but in theory, let's say France goes full on Marie Le Pen, extremist. I mean, it's gonna take out France out of EU, just go completely pro Russia, perhaps out of NATO. Um, and then it just seems like the alliances wouldn't hold up anymore. That's what I meant by maybe creating new alliances. But yeah, reforming is also an option. What do you think is going to happen with Coalition of the Willing? Do they have the will?
Uh, so I think that if we're talking about possibility of creating some kind of alliance based on Ukraine's closest allies, that's of course one of the options. All right, one of the options, and again, the countries that are currently in the coalition of the willing, they're Baltic countries, they are countries of G7, and basically there we have it. All right, we already have foundation for like creating NATO 2.0. All right, and if we will, all right, if we have such a desire, but at the same time, the question is how long will the United States, or rather how long will Trump continue selling the weapons to those countries so they deliver them to Ukraine? Like how much time do we have? Like
Yeah.
let's put it this way, because generally that can end literally tomorrow, and he will say, "All right, I'm just not doing it anymore." Okay, you're not giving up Donbass, so no matter what kind of like organization of willing you have, like I don't care. I will not be selling you weapons anymore. So it's another question. One thing that actually gives me just a bit of hope is that Zelensky today informed that he talked to Trump regarding the PAC-3 missiles, the interceptors for the Patriots. And there is a tiny, tiny chance that we will get them, but Since Trump is so much unreliable in terms of what he's saying, all right, let's talk Haitians, let's talk, I don't know, finishing the war in Ukraine in 24 hours and 1 year. Let's talk sanctioning Russia really, really bad. So they start squealing. Where are those sanctions? Like, I have no idea. Tomahawks to Ukraine, then no tomahawks to Ukraine. Like, because he's so much unreliable, all right, and because nobody trusts this man anymore because he literally he doesn't keep his word, which is sorry again for my French, it's fucking embarrassing for a man. Simply as that. It's
I
fucking
agree.
embarrassing for a man. So because he doesn't keep his words, so the point is, I will only say, "Holy shit! I'm so happy that we have those missiles finally." As soon as this is, I don't know, like a paper signed, all right, by both presidents, or missiles like physically delivered to Ukraine, because we know that that dude changes his decision like every single day based on, I have no idea whether he ate good or bad cheeseburger in the morning. Maybe he drank a wrong coffee or something. Like planets collided. I have no idea.
Um, should we talk about this? I call it Bop House, but it's Trump's Board of Peace. Oh boy. So this week at Davos, Donald Trump announced something he called a Board of Peace. It is not a UN peacekeeping force. It is not a NATO initiative. It is not a recognized international body. It is a private board that countries can pay to join. Well, the price is $1 billion. The countries invited to join include United States, Russia, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Turkey, Qatar. Ukraine was invited. Zelensky declined. Zelensky said it's hard to sit on a peace board with a country that has been bombing you for the last 4 years. And out of the people Trump appointed to the board could not even attend Davos ceremony, meaning um, Putin, because he would get. I hope he he makes that mistake once, but yeah, because then he would get arrested and get taken to the Hague. But Russia agreed to join. But here's the twist: they said that they would pay the 1 billion fee using frozen Russian state assets currently held in United States. So, in other words, Putin only gets his seat at Trump's peace board if Trump unfreezes Russian money, which it belongs to Ukraine really as reparations for rebuilding. But Putin also said that he wouldn't mind also using the money to rebuild Donetsk. All lies, obviously. But Trump then claimed the US must take Greenland to protect it from Russia while simultaneously inviting Russia onto the peace board. The same Russia. The UN approved the structure, by the way. That same, yeah, which is, by the way, UN is in desperate need of reform, I think. Um, but also, it's a fake board. It's not a real international governing body. It is a paid-to-pay diplomatic club with no legal authority, no transparency, and no enforcement power. It looks like peace and more like a real estate boardroom pretending to be geopolitics. Starsky, do you think that Trump may be copying, doing like BRICS, wants to make some kind of BRICS type of alliance?
I think he misses his golf club. You know, like he wants a golf club where he can play golf with like Xi Jinping or like Putin or Lukashenko. I'm not sure if Lukashenko can play golf. He can hold that, stick, so probably he can. Yeah, but that's basically the club of wealthy and powerful people in Trump's imagination. I think so. All right. Um, so that is, of course, absolutely disgraceful. There's a lot of countries that already declined this offer, like France, for example, because serious leaders don't want to see themselves sitting behind the same table with freaking Lukashenko. Lukashenko is non grata in the whole world. All right, nobody wants to see his freaking face because he's a dictator, and people generally despise him. Then Putin, internationally wanted war criminal. All right, let's imagine the day when Putin is tried. Okay, how many people will feel unsettled because of that? All right, because they had this misfortune of, you know, being involved with Putin here or there. I don't know, as much as like, you know, drinking a cup of coffee. Do you want to go to Hague for that and explain why the hell did you like had that with Putin, the despicable internationally wanted war criminal who kidnapped kids in Ukraine and bombed civilians? Apparently, you don't, and uh, serious leaders don't want to be involved in that stuff. Why exactly Trump loves tyrants, dictators so much? I have no idea. Maybe he will explain it himself. I believe that people who don't have much critical thinking, they usually say like, well, it's Trump's way of, you know, like solving problems, speaking to our enemies and making them our friends. I don't want my enemies to become my friends. I want my enemies to go to jail. All right. That's what I want. When somebody, like, when somebody gives you like a black eye, that's one thing. When somebody rapes children, kills them, and puts them in the mass grave, or bombs a freaking theater with like those huge letters saying children in front of it, and using it as a name and bombing that place, burying hundreds of people in the debris, that is a different thing. All right, that's not a black eye. I want those people to go to jail and basically rot there, all right, forever until they disappear. I don't want them to become my friends. I don't want to sit behind the same table with them, you know, like drink coffee and say, "Oh, you know, you killed a lot of our men back then, all right, including women and children. You're such a, you know, such a remarkable person. I'm glad that we're friends." What kind of fuckery is that? When Trump says that, you know, Zelensky has a problem, he hates Putin so much, that's literally because Trump has no fucking understanding of what the war is, all right? What the real life is. And in order to understand it, most probably he would better go and visit, I don't know, Ukraine once in a while, because Biden did. Apparently, he had, you know, a bit more guts than the current one.
You know, when Trump says so many men are dying, um, and he said, you know, 30,000, he's crying over Russian soldiers. He doesn't, if he would care about Ukraine, he would talk about civilians. Civilians are dying, but he's always saying too many men or too many people are dying, 1,000 a week. Those are real Russian lost numbers, but he never mentions Ukrainian civilians, what Ukrainians are going through. He literally cries for, not cries, but always complains. And because of that, he gets mad like at Zelensky, like Zelensky's doing the killing, like, you're killing my friend's soldiers. How dare you?
Yeah, like I don't know. Again, let's be honest here. Trump is not neutral. Trump supports Russia. Okay, Trump roots for Putin. Trump admires Putin. It doesn't mean that, I'm jealous because Trump doesn't admire Zelensky. I don't care. I didn't even vote for Zelensky myself. I'm sorry. Don't hate me for that. But I don't want people to root for terrorists because this is wrong, because it gives people wrong opinions, all right? It gives people wrong values. What values do Russians have? Okay, like sending people into meat assaults, kidnapping children, all right, shooting civilians, bombing civilians, recruiting teenagers over Telegram channels, using them as suicide bombers, as if they're like ISIS, all right? Like those are Russian values. Ask yourself, do you want to have all that, all right? Like, do you really want Russian values? And in order to like inspire yourself just a bit, Google, I don't know, Kalima, all right, look at what it looks like and ask yourself, do you want like 90% of your country look like Kalima? I'm sure you don't. Yeah, we have amazing values in Europe, in United States. Those are values that actually made our countries great, and those are values that Russians are freaking hate because they live their whole lives in sheds, all right, and because they're poor and they will die poor and they will never have proper life, they hate you for that, all right, and they want you miserable. They want to see your demise. That's literally Russian mentality, being freaking mad at world for living your whole life in shit, electing the same assholes over and over again because you don't want to think, you don't want to be responsible for your life, your freedom, your welfare. You want some kind of tsar to do that for you, all right, and send you into the meat grinder on top of donkey, all right, and then you are just killed by a tiny, cheap but highly advanced Ukrainian drone, and you become a fertilizer. That is not proper values, my friends. It sucks. Trust me, it sucks big time.
Gotta say, it's also the American education, or rather lack thereof. Um, Many don't know history, and history repeats itself. And um, yeah, education is so important, and to understand history. But now that I think about, I mean, it seems like Europe, has good education. They would teach history. So then, why is there's still such a um, uprising of like right wing and left wing extremism?
Because this problem is universal. I cannot say that Europe has better education than United States. I can definitely tell you that in Ukraine, kids are overloaded with much more lessons and home tasks than, for example, in European schools. I know because I can compare. All right. I have like little operator Starsky reporting me, the differences between the two.
I
So
mean, I was little when I came from Ukraine. I was 9 to Canada, but let me tell you what I learned in Ukraine till I was 9. I I went straight into like 4th grade, or sorry, 5th grade, because I skipped 4th grade. I didn't need to go because I already knew it. So, and then, I mean,
yeah,
Canada is
yeah,
still pretty good at education, but I mean, it's still North America. And
yeah. Same stuff here. Like it's basically the case because the kid, in, for example, in fourth grade, already has knowledge of like local fifth grade, right? Because they studied that in Ukraine in the fourth grade. So the difference is, of course, there, but I don't think that it's only the education. Um, the problem is not education. The problem is not the people. All right. The problem is that there are specific communities. We call them, for example, informational terrorists, all right, cyber terrorists. uh, terrorist regimes, all right, like those people, they are the problem, all right, because they have strategies, they have money, they know how to bribe, recruit people, and without them our world would be much better place with our current education, with our current people and stuff like that. But without the interference from the terrorist regimes, our world would be a much safer and much better, much more beautiful place, because we have a bunch of idiots with like the biggest budgets in the world, all right, like Putin, for example, sitting there plotting, informational operations against European countries, against United States and stuff like that. Because of them, we have all those problems. I know a lot of amazing American people. I literally I don't care about their education, but for example, one thing that would always make me, amused or amazed, all right, about American people is that you guys, in 99% cases, all right, you're all extroverted, all right, you are all like, our guys, all right, like you are the first to drink, you are the first to have fun, you are the first to lead, and that is like everywhere. That is, I can see that in my friends, I can see that in the movies, I can see it everywhere. That, for example, when we talk about Americans, they are the first to drink, they are the first to lead you into combat, they are the first to run from it, like, together with you, but they are always, the first. They're extroverted, they're cool, they are raised on, on some specific values that make them American, and that is something I admire, and I like that about American people. And I can say the same about a lot of Europeans. Like, Germans are very unlike Americans, right? They're very different, but still they're really, really cool. British people, again, with their amazing humor, and Italians, by the way, they kind of, have kind of a rivalry in terms of humor with British, I would say so,
Oh,
and
really?
French.
With the British? Italian and British?
um, Italian humor, like, British humor, you can learn from, from like Monty Python, Benny Hill,
Right.
because that's what I was raised on. Italian humor, you should be born with it, because without it, like, without Italian genes, um, it's very hard to master. All right, so those are like two completely different worlds, but they are so unique. All right, and um, whatever we have today, it doesn't depend on education much. It depends literally on, gremlins of the Kremlin that actually ruin this world for us, and we have to fight against them and fight actively.
I completely agree, but I still think education plays a role, because if you keep your population stupid, you can control the population. They're not educated. So it's definitely, and that's how Russia does it. Um, that's why, I mean, in United States. But I gotta say that it may seem like online that Russia has a lot of supporters and like pro Russia Americans. It's actually like 8% that only if in America that support Russia can't stand Putin. And there's actually more Americans now than there was in the beginning of the full scale invasion in 2022. So it's just it's online. It's been made to seem like that. So Trump won, really. Um, but plus, a lot of these MAGA like accounts, they're not even American. They're like India, Bangladesh, all over the world except America. All these MAGA accounts. So sometimes we gotta tell ourselves that it's not as bad as it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. There was this amazing case, literally. Like a week or 2 weeks ago, it was all over Ukrainian monitoring channels and social media. An Indian dude would literally use AI to generate racist content and literally share it around the internet and earn money like that, all right? And that, like, he created a lot of fake stories, fake like images and videos using AI,
Mhm.
uh, a- and all that to trigger the topic of, like, racial inequality. The dude from India himself.
Mhm.
So he made specifically content for United States, for the Western society, and it's a very, very famous story. You can Google it actually. One of the great examples of how it works, if you have fake fake content, a lot of bots, you can make it look very, very big, like they do it on X every single freaking time.
Yeah. Um, we do have to wrap up soon, but before I let you go, I gotta. By the way, it's so amazing talking to you. I could talk to you and like learn so much from you for a long time, but I do have to let you go. It's
Likewise.
pretty late there. Um, before we do that, let's do something fun. Um, gonna do a really fast fire round of questions. So, Starsky, before we let you go, we're doing a SlavaCast fire round. No thinking, just vibes. And this is something new that I'm trying. Um, here's your question: what's your favorite moment in Ukrainian history and why?
Revolution of Dignity, because we realized we have it.
Absolutely, that was a great answer. Um, okay, what's your favorite Ukrainian food?
Сырники, tiny cheese pancakes.
I just had sirniki before this live stream. Delicious. And then next question: um, do you prefer Ukrainian food or German food?
I generally prefer sushi, so I don't care.
I love sushi. It's good. You know, there is a Ukrainian sushi. I mean, I'm sure you know all about it. All right, next question. Next and last question. If Ukraine were a person at a party, what would they be doing right now?
I think they would be probably eating, because generally speaking, Ukrainian people love eating. We enjoy this stuff, all right? Whatever is going on, wherever you are, first thing, you gotta eat.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Um, Starsky, thank you so much for being here. Uh, can you tell everyone where they can find you? But I'm sure you don't need more, but for people that don't know you, for the algorithm.
People, my dear friends and family there in the chat, you can always find me on YouTube, on the Substack, in Instagram, and on Blue Sky. My God, what else do I have? Jesus, Discord I don't have, unfortunately, but I think that will be enough, pretty much.
All right. And when can people watch you on UATV?
So on UATV, in most cases, they can see the Frontline Focus, our weekly review. Every Monday, every Friday, we have Weapons of War, where we talk about the latest tech innovations, different things about tactics, combat medicine, everything war related. And twice a month, we have Brave Hearts on Thursday, but this time might shift just a bit.
All right. Awesome. I'd like to thank my rockstar mods, as always, who keep the space powerful and sane and moving. Broadcast Cat, SSW Custom Sewing, Salt of the Red Earth, and YOLO Swaggins. Thank you so much. real MVPs. Make sure that you guys are subscribed, hit like, drop a comment, and share this episode. If it made you think, laugh, learn, or rage a little, all are valid. Look out for SlavaCast video episode, come out next week. And God bless everyone, except the Russians. Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Bye, guys. All right. I think we're